Yes, I am. Now I'm not.
That's good. Let me turn you up.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
I'll let you.
How is the screen?
It's good. Yeah. Looks great. Let me. Okay, you're on Spotlight now, so hopefully everyone will see you full screen. And hopefully we have a few more join us.
A few more minutes.
Yeah. If everyone can type their name in the chat box too when they get in, that way we can give you credit for being here.
I know sometimes for me, if I hear that a Zoom is at 6, then I start logging on at 6, and then I'm like, oh, wait.
Yes, for sure. Let's see, make sure. It looks like there's a waiting room, so I'm just making sure that everyone is in.
Oh, good.
For that.
There we go. Oh, good. A few more.
Yay.
How is everyone doing? I don't see any faces yet, and that's okay, I understand. But we really want to be able to visit and ask questions, and you guys shout out along the way. So just making sure our volume is working. Can you guys hear us? Oh, I got a thumbs up.
Good.
Okay, well, we have 2 really good recipes today, and they may take the whole hour, just kind of depending on how we go. So is it okay if we get started? What do you think, Lexi?
I think we get started, and hopefully we'll have a few more trickle in.
Okay, and they can always ask questions as we go. Okay, so guys, welcome back. We got to discuss with Chef B the whole My Plate some more a little bit last week, and y'all made an incredible tostada. And how many of you guys made that at home? Did you get a chance to make it?
Yes, I made it live.
Oh, you made it live? That is so cool. That is awesome. Anyone else? I know Chef B's kids swiped them right off the counter when she was done last time, and they were really happy that she had a class with you guys so that they had a yummy dinner or snack after. So they thank you, truly. So let's go ahead and get started this week. If you guys remember, I spoke on fruits I guess it was a couple weeks back, and there are so many different ways to incorporate fruit into our meals that are not just eating fruit straight from, say, a banana. Like, this banana is great, but sometimes we want some different varieties and ways of incorporating our fruit. There's also dried fruit that we talked about. So we have like dried cherries here. And then we also have some frozen fruit that we will put into our parfait a little bit later. Can someone tell me what was important about frozen or dried fruit? What are we supposed to look for in the packages and the ingredients?
Low sodium.
Low sodium. You don't know what they're going to add. What else?
Oh, sugar.
Yes, excellent. Sugar. Because sometimes they think that fruit is not necessarily sweet enough, and it is. And so they sprinkle in a little sugar, but at the end of the day, we don't need that sugar on some of our frozen fruits or all of our frozen fruits. And then in dried fruit, these cherries, these are cranberries. These cranberries would be a little tart, so they do add a little bit of sugar. But just to note that when we do eat them as a snack or sprinkled in our granola, that we don't want to eat a ton of them because they do have the added sugar, but they also have the good nutrients. So we've got our My Plate here. And this is our fruit section, our fruit triangle. And what do we want half of our plate to be?
Fruit and vegetables.
Excellent, fruit and vegetables. We want half of our plate to be plants. So yes, again, we can eat the banana, but let's talk about some creative ways to incorporate fruit into our meals. Okay, so here's my plate. We're gonna set that aside, but keep that in mind as we go. And I wanna start with the homemade yogurt parfait. Did you guys get these recipes?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a homemade yogurt parfait, and then on the back, we have a whole grain banana pancake. And both of these items can either be breakfast or they can even count as good snacks. I know at our house, if I make extra granola or extra pancakes, that my girls snack on them throughout the day. And again, we wanted to add some excitement to our whole grain pancakes and to our yogurt parfait by adding some fruits into it. So here we go with the yogurt parfait. We're gonna start by making some granola, and you might say, no, granola's for the cooking network. That's a little too challenging. I just buy my granola at the store. No way, we're here to prove otherwise, that granola is so easy to make. And when you make it, you can control what ingredients are in it. So the cool thing is we're gonna use one bowl. Awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like to do a lot of dishes. So I'm gonna use one bowl to make this granola. And in our recipes, we don't have many ingredients. So all these ingredients are gonna go into one bowl, and it's just a few steps. So are you guys ready?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the first ingredient, and that's 2 tablespoons to 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So the reason we wrote it both ways is because brown sugar is sweet, and it is an added sugar, and we don't want to eat a lot of it each day. So just a little bit to satisfy that sweet tooth. And with our oats, it's delicious. But again, you can choose to either do 2 tablespoons or that 1/4 cup. So today we're gonna do let's do a 1/4 cup today. And brown sugar, my girls love brown sugar, and I did too as a kid, because it's got that really fun like stickiness to it, and you can kind of pick it up. And I remember just like sprinkling it into my mouth as a kid because it was just so yummy. And brown sugar has that kind of moist sugar. It's not like regular table sugar that just falls through your hands like sand, maybe, like sand at a beach, but it's because it contains molasses. So brown sugar is just table sugar with molasses. And the darker the brown sugar, the more molasses it has. So this is light brown sugar, but you'll notice that if you do shop for your groceries, or you might have different brown sugars at home, there's dark and then light. You could use either one. We want to make sure that you guys use whatever's in your pantry and make these recipes as easy as possible. So we're going to start with our brown sugar. And I know Chef B also spoke a little bit about mise en place. Does anyone remember that term from last week?
Can you repeat it, please?
Mise en place.
I think when you like slowly add it.
So that's good, because you're thinking about the process. It is actually a French term meaning to put in place. So when I looked at all of my ingredients right before I grabbed the brown sugar, I saw that I had my oats and my brown sugar, my oil, my honey, and my salt all right here together. So that way I know that I'm not trying to run to the pantry and grab something or call a neighbor and try to get an extra egg or something else that I need while my recipe might be burning. If you do mise en place, you know that you have all the ingredients there and the correct amounts. So again, I've got all my ingredients here in a row. I have checked them off on my list, and I am ready to measure. A proper mise en place, you would go ahead and measure and then have them ready to dump in. But since this recipe is so easy and I want to show you some measuring techniques, we're going to do it together. Okay, so back to the brown sugar. Brown sugar is the one ingredient that you guys, that we pack pack, meaning, can you see how my hand is pressing this brown sugar into this cup?
Yes.
It has a lot of air. And so if you pack it in, you're going to get the proper measurement of this quarter cup. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to press on it really hard with your whole weight. It just means just give it a little pat to get the air out. And then you'll notice when it falls into the bowl that you have this little pad of brown sugar or sandcastle, either one. Now I'm going to take this same quarter cup measurement, and then I'm going to go to my next ingredient, and it is canola oil. So canola, oh, did you have a question?
What's the substitute for brown sugar?
Good question. So you can use regular sugar. You can make brown sugar if you have molasses, but that's kind of a unique ingredient too. So do you not have any brown sugar right now?
No, my mom ordered it, but it didn't come.
Hey, we understand. That's exactly what happens right now. So go ahead and use regular sugar, and then with your oil and honey, it'll mix together and it will be just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thanks for asking. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my canola oil, and have you guys ever noticed this little heart on canola oil?
Yes.
Sometimes oil has that little heart, and you're probably thinking, well, canola oil is a fat, and how is it for your heart? Well, there's a bunch of different kinds of fats. There are fats that move at room temperature like this, and see how when I rock it back and forth, the liquid moves within the container? And then there's solid fats at room temperature, and this is coconut oil. It's kind of trendy and people are using it a lot, but it is a saturated fat, meaning when I turn it over, it's not gonna come out, right? This is stuck in here. So this is what we call solid at room temperature, and this is a saturated fat. This, over time, too much of this is not good for your body, and it is difficult for it's hard on your heart. But a unsaturated fat from a plant is good because it has omega-3 fatty acids. So these are good fats. So if someone talks about oil not being good, you need to ask the type of oil and the type of fat that it comes from. And remember that if it's liquid at room temperature and a plant oil, that a little bit is good. It still has calories, but know that it does have benefits as well. So we're gonna go ahead and do the oil.
Hey, Lindsay, can I make a note on the oil too?
Yeah.
So when looking for those liquid oils, canola oil is going to be a better choice than vegetable oils. Oils like corn oil or sunflower seed oil. Canola oil has what are called monounsaturated fats. That's a pretty big word. But those are even better for your heart than the ones that are found in vegetable oils.
And same with olive oil. Olive oil is another good choice. So olive oil and canola oil above vegetable or some of the other ones, like you said, coconut oil. So thanks, Lexi. So we have the coconut oil that I just poured in. I'm using the same quarter cup measure. I've done the brown sugar and I've done the coconut oil. And now I've coated it with oil. So my honey, what happens when I put honey usually in a container? Does it come right out or does it get sticky?
It gets sticky.
It gets so sticky. So the good news about putting in the canola oil first is, yes, it's convenient, but also it's going to allow me to pour this right out of this cup. So, drum roll. Ready? Okay, it's good.
Excuse me?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the substitute of honey?
So you can use any liquid sugar. Do you have maybe agave or maple syrup?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Either one of those will work just fine. And that's a great question because there's a bunch of different substitutes you can use for honey. And if you use something like maple syrup, I think it's a really fun addition to fall because for some reason, maple syrup and fall, it just goes together really well. So you may even enjoy that a little bit more. So great question. Okay, so we've got those 3 things in there. And then now I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt. And the salt is a ½ teaspoon, so just a little bit. And salt is used to enhance flavor. It's not because I want my food to taste salty, it's because I want to taste all the flavors in the food. And so it enhances your food. But you don't want to use too much salt, just a little bit again to enhance the flavor. Okay, so I have those items in there. And I'm gonna whisk those together. If you don't have a whisk, this is kind of my baby whisk, you can also use a fork. And I'll show you what a fork does. It's the same thing. A whisk, it provides a little bit more air and kind of mixes it a little bit better. But again, having a fork and those teeth will do the same thing. So we're gonna mix this together.
Syrup.
And just do your best, and it kind of sticks to your fork. You can take a spatula. And it's gonna have some clumps still in it. Can y'all see that? But it's not gonna matter. So just mix it up to where it's all incorporated. And that's it for the wet ingredients. Now we're gonna move on to the oats. Whole grain oats. There's so many different kinds of oats. There's rolled oats, there's instant or quick oats. Again, there's so many different ones at the store. Those are the 2. They're steel cut, but I guess rolled oats and instant oats are the 2 that we probably think about the most at the store. We like rolled oats because they're the least amount processing going on in a rolled oat. It's steamed and kind of rolled out flat, but that's all that they've done to rolled oats. They're delicious because they're chewy and hearty. And again, in this recipe, you can use either one, but we really like the rolled oat, again, because it gives it such a good, chewy, hearty flavor. But any oats are good, so I don't want you to think that you have to have a special kind between rolled or instant or quick oats. Was there a question? Okay. Okay, let's put in the oats. And this is 3 cups of oats. 1, 2, okay, 3. So pretty fast, and just think if I weren't talking about the nutrition, this would go a lot faster. But we've got it all in here, and I'm gonna start mixing it, and you're gonna see if you're doing this at home too, you're gonna be like, this isn't working, mine's not mixing enough. But it will if you just give it a chance, move it around, smush it a little bit. And I use a spatula. This is a spatula, so I can get all the goodness off of the bottom. So I kind of mix it around here, get it all off the bottom first, pulling from the bottom to the top. And then I take it and I smush my spatula like this. And again, it's not gonna look real wet. It's just gonna look like kind of dried oats with a little bit of sugar almost in there. So I've got them mixed together.
What
And this is, oh yes?
Oh, what consistency is this supposed to have? Like, how long are you supposed to mix it for?
Yeah, what consistency? So it's gonna be about like this. Can you see that? So crumbly and still a little dry, but you want to incorporate the sugar and the honey together as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, this time too, we have added raw nuts, and later we'll do the dried fruit. The reason we don't want to do the dried fruit now is because if you cook something that's already been dried, it's just going to make it, it's going to dry it out more. So then if you take these cranberries and cook them longer, they're just going to dry out and be crummy cranberries. But nuts, there's basically, let's see, we have, these are slivered almonds, and they are not roasted, meaning they have not been cooked yet. And then these pumpkin seeds, these have been cooked. So if they say something like roasted on the package, you don't want to cook them again. But if they're just plain, let's see, slivers or blanched, that is just fine to add now. So I'm going to add my blanched almonds. And again, because they have not been cooked yet, and roasted tastes a lot better when it comes to nuts. It makes them much more flavorful. So I added those nuts in there, and this is my final product. Okay, so I have my granola, and it is ready to pan up. See, I promised one bowl. That's the kind of cooking that we get to taste, love. So here's a pan, sheet pan, and if you have something smaller, you might want to take 2 pans because we want to make sure that we spread it out evenly. And that way it has room to cook all over the pan, and each part of the granola is touched with heat. So you can either take your pan and spray it, and I have some pan spray here. So I'm going to spray my pan. Or you can use parchment paper, but it's not a necessity. Makes for an easy cleanup, and it's kind of a non-stick paper, but you could lay that down if you'd like. But I sprayed my pan, and I'm gonna pour my granola on my pan, just like so. And then I have clean hands, so I'm gonna use my hands to move this granola, and any extra little pieces I'm gonna break up with my hands, but I'm gonna move it around on this tray so that it all has an even chance of cooking. Okay, so there's my granola, and we're gonna put it into an oven at 250 degrees. So that's not a very high temperature. Most cooking we do is at about 350, and then we roast at a higher temperature, about 400. So 250 is a really low temperature, but we're gonna cook it a long time because granola is kind of a dry cereal. And if we cook it at a lower temperature, it's gonna pull the moisture out and caramelize the sugar on top of the oat. So we're gonna put this in the oven at 250 degrees. And I'm gonna set my timer for 1 hour, but I realized that we don't have an hour left, so I promise I've made some that we can play with and make a yogurt parfait here shortly. Okay, so pretend, ta-da, do you like the granola? That was a quick hour, wasn't it? Okay, so we have a granola, and I wanted to add some cranberries. I'm gonna sprinkle some cranberries. And then this can be stored in a jar, just like this, or a plastic Ziploc bag. It can also be frozen, and my girls and I will eat it straight out of the freezer. We will just pull it out, sprinkle it on top of some yogurt, a yogurt parfait, or as a snack, and eat it on the run, because even if it is slightly frozen, it's still delicious. And it holds really well inside the freezer. So the granola is gonna kind of look like it's gonna stick to the pan, but you can just pull it off and crumble it up into pieces. And let's make our yogurt parfait. Are there any questions so far?
I have one question. What's it called? I didn't put any almonds in mine because I'm allergic to nuts.
That's a great choice. You made a good choice. You can use any other nuts, or seeds, or you can leave them out completely. So you could do like a sunflower seed, or if there's something else that you'd like to add into it. And that's the best part about a granola recipe, is you can make it your own. So if there's something else that you're like, oh, that sounds good, I'll add that. Or even me, I like adding cinnamon or nutmeg or pumpkin spice. All of those are great to add to your granola before cooking. But if you leave that out, or if you leave the dried fruit out, or if you just don't have it at home, that is totally fine. Any more questions?
No. I just put the granola in the oven right now.
Oh, you're so good. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna make our parfait. And the reason is if we eat just this granola, which I promise I could, but if we just eat this granola, then we're not really feeding our body a whole picture of my plate. We're not getting all of our food groups in. And it might be some fiber, but it is a lot of sugar if we just, again, eat this off the pan for our meal. So what we want to do is we want to break that up and incorporate more of the My Plate food groups. And again, we talked about that this would be a great breakfast option. And so when we are talking about starting our day, we want to start it with a lot of power. And we know that fiber and protein together keep us active and full of energy and help us think through class during the day. So I want to make a yogurt parfait with those food groups to show how yummy and how great you will feel with a breakfast item like this. So we're going to take yogurt, granola, and fruit. And again, we have some protein in our yogurt, protein in our nuts or seeds if we added that, and then our delicious fruit that has the vitamins and nutrients that we talked about in one of our last classes to add a lot of color to our plate as well. Now yogurt, guys, this gets tricky because there are so many different yogurts on the shelf. I've even seen low sugar yogurt and all sorts of flavored yogurt, and while they're very clever and they market them very well, the reason they're tricky is because they have a lot of extra sugar and other ingredients in there that we are not too fond of because they're not so good for our body. So the two things that we want you to keep in mind are sugar, and then also something to think about is protein. These are 3 different yogurts, and again, it doesn't matter about brand as much as it matters about reading the label. So these 2 yogurts are both vanilla, but if I look at the back, the added sugar says this one has 5 grams of added sugar, whereas this yogurt has 9 grams of added sugar. So almost twice as much sugar in this vanilla yogurt as this vanilla yogurt. So I'm like, oh, great. Well, which vanilla yogurt do I like? The best choice is to get a plain yogurt. And that way that you can see or sweeten it to taste. And that's really also where our business got its name, is because we want to teach you to cook to your taste, but also to your health. So we know that you'll eat what you like and what you love. So this yogurt here is plain, and alone it's a little tart, but it can be used in a lot of recipes. But also you're adding a sweet granola and a sweet fruit. And so all of that together adds the sugar that you need to sweeten the yogurt. Okay.
How much?
Yes, ma'am.
Yogurt do we add?
So we're going to add a half cup of yogurt.
Okay.
To our cup. So I've got this clear cup here. You can use a bowl or anything else, a plate. It doesn't matter how you want to build your yogurt parfait, but I just chose this clear cup so you guys could see with me.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is a half cup, but I like using these ice cream scoops because it helps me pile it into this cup. So I'm going to do, for me, I'm going to do yogurt, fruit, and then granola. But you can be creative and you can do granola on the bottom or fruit on the bottom. There is no true recipe to building. It's just what you like. And I have frozen blueberries here. They're just frozen blueberries without sugar. And it also has pineapple pieces. And I love berries in the morning, or I really love berries any time of day. But the frozen blueberries are best right now because as we're starting to get out of berry season, I know that the quality is still good because they were frozen at peak ripeness. Okay. And then I'm going to take, let's see, that one has blueberries on it. So I'm going to kind of break up my granola here and pour that on top. And this is my, can y'all see that? My yogurt parfait with the granola on top. Does that look delicious?
It does.
And my house smells wonderfully. I know you can't smell it, but homemade granola makes it truly smell amazing in your house. And this can be a great gift for a teacher or an adult or a friend. Granola packages really well, and especially during the holidays. You can put it in a container and a bow on the top, and someone will really enjoy it for breakfast or for a snack. Okay.
I
So,
smell it right now. It's
smell yours now?
yeah.
And what does it smell like?
It smells like sweet. It smells really sweet.
Really sweet.
Like a type of sugar, like a sweet type of vanilla.
Awesome. Yes, that's perfect. It really, if you add cinnamon too, or pumpkin spice for fall, that makes you feel festive as well. Okay, so I'm going to clear out of the way here and pull my ingredients for my pancakes. Were there any other questions about yogurt parfaits or granola? Lexi, can you think of anything that I may have missed?
I just have one other comment on the granolas. For me personally, I don't have too much of a sweet tooth, so I don't need the full quarter cup of brown sugar, and that's where I get to adjust it to my taste. So I don't like as much sugar, so I just bring that brown sugar down to just 1 tablespoon. And so if you try this granola recipe and you're like, that's a little bit too sweet for my taste, you can decrease the sugar too. A few other things that I like to add too are cinnamon, like Chef Lindsey said, or vanilla extract. That's really tasty too. So that's how I adjust this recipe to my taste.
That's awesome. And Lexi's so right, especially if you choose a vanilla yogurt and you notice that extra sugar in the yogurt, it's really good not to add the extra sugar in the granola. So a little bit of sweetness goes a long way, and you can enjoy it in different ways like that. Great. Who's ready for some pancakes? Yay. I know it's like, have y'all ever had breakfast for dinner? I feel like that's what we're doing right now. I know at our house it will be. Okay. So for pancakes, I'm going to use 2 bowls. Sorry guys, but I promise they're still easy. So we've got our ingredients over here, and I realize our flour is taking up a lot of this screen, but it's important. We're going to talk about the flour in just a minute. But when I did a mise en place for this recipe, meaning the French term to put in place, I have my flour, my white sugar, my baking powder, my baking soda, salt, the same salt that we used. I have 1 medium banana. If you have a small banana, that's okay. If you have a large banana, that's okay. The more banana you use, the more moisture your pancake may have, but just use your best judgment. And then I have 1 cup of buttermilk and my 2 tablespoons of butter. And then I have a runaway egg over here and vanilla. So those are our ingredients, again, 10 or less, that are going into these pancakes. And I have a griddle heating right over here. I have preheated the griddle, and again, if you're using a heated item like the stove or this griddle, or even you could use a stovetop with a nonstick pan, make sure that you do have an adult with you, because we do want to make sure that we're using safe practices first. So I have heated my griddle over here, and I'm curious if I were to test this griddle to know if it's hot enough, I could just drop a little water and it sizzles. You can kind of see the little white sizzling running around my pan, but that's one way to check it. Or I could put a little bit of oil on it, and when the oil shimmers on top of the pan, meaning that it kind of rolls around and it looks almost like it's shimmering or glistening on the pan, then you know that it is also hot enough too. My mom used to say that the first batch of pancakes was always a waste because they weren't good. And I was like, well, that's weird, because mine are okay now. I realized back then they weren't, but it was because our griddle or our skillet was never hot enough. So if you preheat it, then it is hot enough and your first batch won't be a waste. We don't want to waste any food. So let's make these pancakes together. I think we have about, okay, 25 minutes. We got it. I want to go through the ingredients similar to the last recipe.
Okay.
Have whole wheat flour. We have white whole wheat flour on this pancake recipe, and white whole wheat has a lighter color, and it does look a little different, and it is a little fluffier than a whole grain that's not white whole wheat flour. You can see in this flour, I think this is really cool. Can y'all see the like layers of wheat, the different pieces of the wheat that are in this flour? And you'll notice that at the bottom, my flour was different. This flour was a different brand than this top flour. They're both whole wheat flours, but they truly vary a lot. So as we create this recipe, you can add a little bit more buttermilk or a little less, depending again on your flour and which ones you use. Oh yes?
How much flour do we use?
Okay, I'm about to go there. I'm just being way too chatty.
Okay.
Okay, so I have whole wheat flour because for me, I didn't get white wheat flour in our groceries this week, so I'm truly showing you the versatility of the recipe. Okay, so we're gonna do 1 cup of whole wheat flour, and I'm gonna take my measure, and when you measure flour, you first wanna fluff it with your spoon. And that's because I had the lid on here and I had it packed to the brim, and it packed the flour down into this container. Which ingredient is the only ingredient that we really want to pack? Can y'all remember? I'll give you a hint. It's brown, and it has, which one?
Wait, can you repeat that, please?
Which ingredient do we want to pack?
I want to pack the sugar.
Brown sugar, yes. Okay, but flour we don't want to pack because too much flour and your recipe will weigh it down and make a much heavier or denser product. So I fluffed this flour with my spoon, and I spooned it into my measuring cup, and then I'm just going to level it off with my spoon and pour it into my bowl.
Okay, I got it.
So that was 1 cup.
Yeah.
This bowl is gonna have the dry ingredients, and this bowl is gonna have my wet ingredients. Sometimes with my kiddos at home, I label it so I have dry and wet, and that way your ingredients all mix together really well as dry and wet, and then you incorporate them together, and that way you don't overmix them as well, because we don't want to overmix our pancake batter. Okay, so next we're going down the line, and we have sugar. I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then we're going to do the baking powder. We have 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then baking soda. What are baking powder and baking soda? You know those bubbles that you find in your pancakes when they're cooking?
Yes.
That is done or is created by what we call a leavener. And baking soda and baking powder are called leaveners because they create those little bubbles in your pancakes and lift them and make them fluffy. So those are baking powder, baking soda, and then we're gonna do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt right here.
Teaspoon of salt.
So those are our dry ingredients. I'm going to, with a fork or a whisk, I'm going to incorporate those ingredients, meaning just mix them around and make sure they're all mixed well. Okay, so it looks like that. Now here's the wet bowl. I'm going to clean up my spot. And in this wet bowl, I'm going to start by mashing my banana. There's 2 ways to mash the banana. You could either mash it with a fork, or you could mash it with clean hands, whatever works for you. I'm going to use a fork and just mash your banana. And again, if it's a bigger banana or a smaller banana, that's okay. If it's a really big one, maybe don't use it all. You can slice the rest of it and eat it on top of your pancake. That would be yummy.
Can I add a note on the bananas here, Chef Lindsey?
Yeah, please.
So an older banana, a banana that has more brown spots, is going to be 1, sweeter, and 2, easier to mash. So if you like your pancakes a little bit sweeter, use an older banana. And the more ripe bananas might be better on top rather than inside the pancakes.
Yes, so true. Thank you, Lexi. Runaway, I'm gonna find it as soon as I, oh no. Oh, it's right here, it's right in front of me. See, that's why mise en place is so important. I knew it was here, I just couldn't see it. Okay, so I'm gonna do a 1 cup buttermilk measure. This is a liquid measuring cup, and it looks different than, say, this dry measuring cup. In a liquid measure, you don't fill it all the way to the top. So this has 2 cups that I could fill it to, but it still leaves you room because a true measure needs to go all the way to the top. Whereas this dry, if I needed 1 cup of buttermilk and I tried to fill up this cup with buttermilk, I would be like, don't spill, because it tends to spill over on when you use a dry measure. A dry measure is nice for leveling, whereas liquid, you want some more room at the top. So if I'm gonna measure my buttermilk, it's asking for 1 cup, and I'm gonna pour into here 1 cup, but I'm also going to bend down like this and see that I'm a little short. A little more. Okay, and that's 1 cup. When I bend down and get to the level of the buttermilk that I want to see the measure, I can see that it's a little bit under or over when I'm truly at its level. You call that the meniscus if y'all are in chemistry or. Yes, Sam?
Are we able to use regular milk instead of buttermilk?
Awesome. Yes, you can make buttermilk. So buttermilk is just made with regular milk and an acid. So I say you fill up almost to the cup of cup measure, and you add a little bit of the vinegar or lemon juice will work, and then you let it sit for a little while. It's usually about 5 minutes, but that way you can make your own buttermilk.
Okay, thank you.
You're asking awesome questions. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Okay, so I'm gonna pour this buttermilk in. Then I'm going to, this is 2 tablespoons of butter. While we don't want to eat a lot of butter because it is heavier, it does have saturated fat, but we don't want to replace it with artificial butters or margarines that have a ton of other added ingredients. You really can't replace the flavor and the mouthfeel of butter. So using a little bit is better than replacing it with something that is an artificial ingredient. So this is butter. We're gonna just pop it in the microwave for a little bit of time, like 30 seconds. And not too long, because what happens if you leave the butter in the microwave too long? It explodes. Have any of y'all encountered that? Just my house? Okay. So I already have melted butter, but really guys, it does cook quickly, so you don't want to leave it in there too long or it really does pop. So you can heat it up in a coffee cup or anything. Just be careful because the container itself can get really hot. So you're gonna pour in that butter. And then I'm gonna do my 1 egg. And a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And this is gonna be it. Okay, any questions on the pancake batter so far?
Did you add eggs?
I did. I added 1 egg.
Okay, thank you.
Are you all caught up? Do you want me to slow down at all?
No, I just needed, I saw some yellow and I thought, it was eggs, so I just asked.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to mix up those wet ingredients. And again, you can use a whisk or a fork, anything to incorporate it. Okay, so I mixed it in. I've already incorporated my dry over here. And then I'm going to steal another spatula. Okay, so I'm going to take my wet and I'm going to pour it into my dry. And remember how I said earlier that we don't want to mix it all together early because a pancake batter is what we call a quick bread, and we don't want to overmix our batter. We just want it to be incorporated. So now I have the wet in with the dry, and I'm going to start to fluff it. Now, does anyone believe that the whole wheat flour will taste just as good as the white flour? Or is anyone kind of concerned about that?
I think it's good, just as good as the white flour.
Good.
I saw someone raising their hand that they were a little bit concerned.
So before I really cooked a lot and before I knew a lot about nutrition and started experimenting with recipes, I too was kind of skeptical about using whole wheat flour in a lot of recipes. So one, using the white whole wheat is a good way to start using a whole wheat flour in recipes, or you can split it half and half, meaning you could start with a whole wheat flour, a half cup of whole wheat flour, and a half cup of all-purpose flour. But I can also tell you with butter and banana and sugar, there is no reason that you guys would not like this. So that's why you have to make it at home. So with all that being said, I've started to mix it all up, and it really looks good with a few pockets of maybe a little bit of dry ingredients, but not much, and it's real fluffy. So like I said, even with the whole wheat flour, it's still really fluffy. Okay, so I've got the pancakes ready. I've checked my griddle, and I know that it was hot based on my sizzling water. You can use pan spray or butter. You can run some butter on the top of your skillet or griddle, or you could do a little bit of oil. So any of those would work for nonstick, but also some nonstick pans don't really need anything, that they won't really stick to the pan at all. Okay, so I'm gonna get this guy. I'm gonna use a 1/4 cup to make my pancakes. I like them like about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches. And if I take, you'll notice this is so fluffy. I don't know if you guys can see that, but as I put my scoop into it, it was literally like marshmallowy fluffy. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add a little spray just in case, because no cooking show should have a sticky pancake, right? And you can already hear it sizzle. And I love this ice cream scoop for the ease of getting it out of the scoop and onto the pan. Make sure you leave yourself enough room to flip, and make sure that you guys have an adult when you're working with this, the heated equipment or an oven. And it's about 2 minutes on this side, and then I'm gonna flip it over and do about 2 minutes on the other side. Does anyone remember what causes those little bubbles inside the pancakes?
Baking powder.
Yes, great. Baking powder and baking soda as leaveners they are creating little bubbles inside. And I promise I'm going to prove my mom wrong that this first batch is going to be delicious. But you're going to look for those little bubbles. You can set a timer for 2 minutes, but that's about the time it'll take to cook one side of the pancake and then flip it over and then do 2 more minutes on the other side. My griddle, my electric griddle, is set to 350 degrees, but if you're using a stovetop, then probably about medium heat is a good place to start. And then you could turn it up and down depending on the size of your flame or the heat of your pan. All of those things kind of play a factor into cooking your pancakes. So they are starting to cook and I can see the bubbles and they're smelling really good, and it's probably because of the butter too and the banana. If you really want a treat, and like Lexi was saying, you can cut out a little bit of the sugar and you could add some chocolate chips to it. You can, my girls like the mini chocolate chips, but that's also delicious.
Oh, about the granola, I already had it pre-made before class. Like I made it before class.
Wow, yeah?
Yeah.
You have something to show us?
I'll just get it real quick. Oh, and I have one question. Do you want us to like break it apart?
Oh, okay. That's a personal preference. And so for me, I like chunky granola. And so when I break it apart on the pan, I like to keep kind of chunkier pieces. And that way it really looks homemade and you have these big crunchy bites of granola, whereas some people like to break it up into fine pieces. So that's really a personal preference to you, but it really does look homemade when it has those chunks in it. It's delicious. Okay, so I have my pancakes. Do y'all see how they're all cooking evenly and they're browning and they have a little bit of that, the bubbliness, and they're fluffy. They're really coming together nicely. And again, if you could smell it, I think that's the next part of Zoom progress and improvements would be to be able to smell food as we're cooking it.
I like that idea, Lindsay. I think that's a good idea.
I just add the vanilla extract into my ingredient and then to my pancakes, and then I have to set them down on this brittle.
Perfect. You're gonna have warm pancakes for dinner. And if you want to, you can keep them in the freezer for later on in the week, or you could even eat them tomorrow morning. They can just be, it makes a lot of pancakes, so you can keep them around for other days, and that way you're not having to make them early in the morning. Okay, so I am happy with the way my pancakes are looking. And you know what? We've got this beautiful plate right here. And I can slice banana pieces and put them on top, or I could add some of my other berries. That would be a really fun idea, right? So we talk about adding a lot of color to our plate, but I could add some extra berries. Or, you know, what would be really fun is because they're banana pancakes, I could sprinkle a few chocolate chips, just a few, and slice some strawberries, some beautiful strawberries on there would be really nice. What do you guys like to add to your pancakes?
I don't really have a preference to adding anything, but oh, and I want to show y'all the yogurt and granola. I just finished making it.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to flip the camera. Oh,
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Way to go.
That looks beautiful. I like your presentation.
thank you.
That is wonderful. Are you gonna have it for dinner?
Yes.
Good. All your hard work. That's the best part. And have you tasted it yet?
No.
Not yet. So that is really important, and that is the best part of making food in your kitchen is that you get to taste it along the way and change it and make it custom, all to your taste.
It's really.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and while using good ingredients. So that's why we love simple, quality recipes. So did you guys see how we added fruit to our recipes today? So it wasn't just eating a piece of fruit, but it was a way to incorporate fruit into our meals as nutrients and flavor, and in the pancakes, moisture. It just creates all around a delicious meal.
A couple of other good additions to pancakes. If you guys like peanut butter or almond butter or some toasted nuts are really good, and that adds a little bit of extra protein, which helps fill up that My Plate a little bit more. So that can be another good healthy addition to a whole wheat pancake. And one other thing that I kind of noted on the granola, but another thing for these pancakes too, is if you guys want to adjust this recipe to your taste by adding other spices like pumpkin spice or nutmeg or cinnamon, this is a great recipe for that. So, again, adjusting all of these recipes to your taste.
And Lexi, did you mention nut butter into the granola too?
I didn't mention that. No, do you want to talk about that?
We have a variation also on our website that adds nut butter to our granola, or that you could on your own add nut butter to the granola, adding that extra protein and flavor. So something that you could mix in and maybe not add as much oil. But the good thing about granola is as you play with it, even just adding a little or taking away a few things, it's really tough to mess up. And that's really the best part about it, is it's delicious pretty much no matter what. So don't be afraid to alter that recipe and play with it to make it fun for you guys and for your household. Okay, are y'all hungry? Have you had dinner yet?
I'm hungry.
Better flip my last pancakes. Do you guys have any questions about any of these recipes from today?
No. I ate some of my yogurt, and then my dad saw it, and then he took my yogurt.
That's compliments to the chef.
Yeah.
So was it pretty easy though?
Yeah.
Good deal.
Oh, and my pancakes are cooking. Yeah, they're cooking.
Awesome. Well, don't let them burn. These are the 2 recipes that I have for you guys this week, and these are the recipe cards again, and some extra tips at the bottom. Like Lexi was saying about the extra fruit or nuts, protein that you can add, the extra fiber, all of those things, again, are wonderful for your morning breakfast to keep you fuller and sustained and able to think throughout the day. So getting your morning started with a great breakfast and adding fruit as the color and the nutrients and the fiber just really will make you happier throughout the day. So you guys remember that these can also be snacks and just a fun way to play in the kitchen with some new recipes.
Well, thanks so much for participating today, everyone. If you want to take a picture of your creations, if you ended up making them, you can send them to yesdallas@texashealth.org, and they would be happy to get those recipe pictures from you. Bielma fam, if you want to do that, you've been hard at work in the kitchen there, so make sure you get some good pictures for us and get those sent our way. We love seeing what you guys come up with.
Especially where it's stolen from your hands.
I know.
Scooped right out.
So next week we'll be meeting again at 6 o'clock, and we will be talking about gardening. I'm going to give you guys a tour of my garden and farm up here in Idaho. So stay tuned for that, and we hope to see you guys then.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. My dad and mom said the yogurt and the granola tasted great.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.